Apparently not. God.
We can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you couldn't hear me. I can't take my screen off of whatever this is on, but I guess that's okay.
I'll start with that. How about that? So welcome to the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021.
There we go.
See if we've got all our commissioners present. Commissioner Shepard.
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Briscoe.
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Bell is here as well. Just want to remind everybody that the Port of Bellingham's mission statement is to promote sustainable economic development, optimize transportation gateways, and to manage publicly owned land and facilities to benefit Whatcom County. Also want to make sure that I let everybody know that we do have a few meetings coming up. I forgot this last time, so I'm going to get it out of the way. Our Marine Advisory Committee, our MAC meeting is March 9th, 6 p.m. It is a Zoom meeting. We have our Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee on April 8th at 4 p.m. Both those are Zoom meetings. You can go to the Bellingham website and get a link to those meetings. That being said, I think it's time to open the meeting and let's go to public comment. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak?
Commissioner Bell, may I interrupt you?
You usually do. You don't even ask most times.
Did I miss it? I think we need to close our executive session.
That's 2 weeks in a row, Bobby.
I'm sorry, man.
We're going to close the executive session and open the public meeting, and then we'll go to roll call. Now we'll go to public comment. Anybody here wish to speak? Is there anybody on the list? Oh, I see Lance Callaway with AGC.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Lance Callaway, Northern District Manager for Associated General Contractors of Washington. AGC currently represents 51 member contractors and associate members here in Whatcom County, and a large percentage of these member firms have participated in completing a great number of projects on behalf of the Port of Bellingham. I had it brought to my attention the commissioners are considering to send a letter to the Washington State Legislature opposing the shift of funds from the Modal Toxic Control Act to the Washington State General Fund. AGC strongly supports the port's motion in sending this letter in opposition to the transferring of the MTCA funds away from its intended use of these revenues, which is to facilitate the cleanup of hazardous waste sites. It is through these funds which enable our member contractors to conduct the work on the behalf of the Port of Bellingham to make these hazardous areas safe and to allow for the sites to return to be a productive property to further create local economic activity. It's my understanding that while there has been much progress on the Bellingham waterfront and Bellingham Bay in mitigating environmental issues, there still remains a significant amount of work to be done to fully complete the work to make these areas environmentally safe and economically productive. Keeping the MTCA funding in place is critically important to our member contractors, as there is much to be done in regards to infrastructure development and construction so as to fully utilize the economic potential and maximize the impact for the port, City of Bellingham, and Whatcom County. In closing, AGC of Washington fully support the commissioners and the Port of Bellingham in sending the letter opposing the shift of the Model Toxic Control Act funds to the Washington State General Fund. I appreciate the opportunity to address the commission. Thank you.
And we thank you for that input. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing none, I'm going to move to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through H.
Any of the commissioners wish to discuss any of those items? Commissioner Shepard?
No, I've already had all my questions answered. Thank you.
Mr. Briscoe?
No, I've had my questions answered as well. Thank you.
And I make three.
Okay. Motion to approve consent agenda items A through H.
Commissioner Shepard?
I'm a yes.
Mr. Briscoe?
Yes.
And Commissioner Bell is a yes. Okay, so now we get to move to presentations. Executive Director Fix is going to talk to us about apprenticeship opportunities or an apprenticeship program.
Thank you, Commissioner. We've had a couple of folks from local union sit on our commission meetings recently and request that we look into this apprenticeship program. Whatcom County passed something in 2019. The document was never signed by then Executive Laus. It requires that all publicly funded projects utilize 15% apprenticeships in their labor. It staggers that implementation, so beginning on January 1 of 2021, projects over 3 million required a 10% utilization of apprenticeships. As of January 1, 22, that limit goes down to 2 million and requires 12%. And then on January 1st of 2023, all projects over $1 million will require a 15% apprenticeship utilization. The Whatcom County legislation does provide for some exceptions, and those are for federally funded projects. Sometimes Davis-Bacon doesn't allow for apprenticeship type programs. We utilize this type of funding for our airport, so I think that exception is important. And it also calls out projects that have a funding agreement conflict with this requirement, that project would not have to utilize the apprenticeship labor. I'll also note that they provide an exception for reasons deemed appropriate by the county executive, but still consistent with this ordinance.
Hey, Rob, so this was not signed by the executive, but did it still go into rule?
I'm a little confused on that, Commissioner, and I haven't quite figured out whether this took effect on January 1 or not. I'm still trying to figure that out, and as soon as I do, I'll let you know. I heard from one party it did not take effect, and I heard from another it is in effect. So maybe they haven't bid any projects over $1 million in the last month, or I guess it would be $3 million in this case.
Would Lance, if he's still on here, be able to shine some light on that, Rob?
Yes, it did go into effect for January 21 with the $3 million requirement. And I think Rob is correct that there hasn't been any projects yet that have exceeded that dollar amount.
Thank you, Lance. Appreciate that.
And Rob, how many of our projects exceed that $3 million in a typical year?
Oh, 3 million, not a lot. When you get down to 1 million, we'll have a couple each year. 3 million, you're getting up towards, that's the Blaine project, that's the airport expansion, that's the Whatcom waterway cleanup, but definitely not a majority of our projects. They would be under 3. You get to 1 million, you probably, 1 year you may have 2, the next year you may have 5 or 6. The Port of Seattle has a strategic plan. Ports don't pass ordinances, so as Whatcom County was an ordinance in the Port of Seattle, they included it in their strategic plan. And they have an apprenticeship requirement that provides hand-on and classroom training for pre-apprenticeships. They include mentoring and networking opportunities for apprenticeships, and they require 15% utilization. I did not find anything in their strategic plan that put a dollar limit on projects. It just requires a 15% utilization.
Is that all of their projects that they do on port property?
It sure seems that way, yes, sir.
That is correct.
I kicked this around with the staff and some concerns came up. Obviously, anything's doable and this is a commission decision. We're concerned that it may discourage contractors from bidding on port projects, and again, may. It may increase the cost of the project as contractors pass on the increased apprenticeship cost back to the bidder. It may increase awards to out-of-town bidders if we have local companies that don't want to do the apprenticeship requirement and the out-of-towner isn't bothered by it, then we're going to award more contracts to out-of-towners. And the Whatcom County ordinance requires monitoring and reporting. And I guess that's the biggest deal for me is that, the level of monitoring and reporting required could drastically increase the costs. And that's it for my presentation. I have a little more work to do, obviously, on the Port of Seattle side because I'm a little unclear on how theirs is regulated, if you will. It's one thing to pass something or make it a requirement. It's a whole nother to measure it. So I'll turn it over to the commission for any discussion on this item.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yeah, well, I get the cost. I understand that. There's a cost with everything, but if we look around at what's going on in our society, myself, we're all getting older. We're not passing knowledge on to the people that are up and coming. And that's what apprenticeships are about, is to pass on what you've learned in your 60, 70, 80 years, whatever you've been walking the earth and you've learned it. It's not getting passed on anymore. Everybody's busy with their laptops and their computers. A lot of the kids nowadays have no direction. They think that if you're a plumber or an iron worker or a welder or something, you don't have status, but you do. I mean, it's obvious, and we see when we're trying to get things done to support our projects, we can't get companies to do them because the companies don't have the people to do them. So I think apprenticeship programs are very important. I really do. I run an apprenticeship program every year in my boat. I've got people on there who've never been on boats before. We take them out, we teach them how to make a living, we teach them how to be safe. And a lot of those kids over my 45 years of teaching aboard my vessel have moved on and bought their own vessels and have taught other folks and moved on. And that's the way it's supposed to work. But somewhere that fell beside the way with our apprenticeships and our electrical and our contractors, our general contractor stuff, just our building skills. We used to do it in Bellingham Technical College, used to be way more spread out with what they taught the folks in this county. And we've narrowed it down to this high-tech stuff all the time. But high-tech has to have some place to work. They got to have a house to work in. They got to have an office to work in. They got to have a business that'll take their high-tech and do something. So anything that the Port of Bellingham can do to further apprenticeship programs or help, I'm in favor of. I understand the monetary costs, but in the long run, the monetary costs we incur now will be insignificant to the return that our county is going to get in the future of having our own people that can stay here with their families and maintain businesses right here in this county. And that's healthy for the family. That's healthy for society. That's healthy for everyone. And I think if we can promote that, we need to.
Well said. I really like what Commissioner Briscoe said, and I love that story about your real world example of doing those apprenticeships yourself. And for me, I've always been troubled by the argument that the costs are the barrier, because one of the key arguments we hear about why the costs are high for the bids we get are that it's a challenge to find the skilled labor that is needed, and there are not enough companies that always are available to bid on our projects. And so that's part of what drives the costs up. And I think those apprenticeships are designed to broaden that base of who has those skills. So those employees are in the pipeline and they are making it through and ready to be those skilled workers of tomorrow. And hopefully those skilled workers that turn into owners too, and are creating greater competition and greater capacity to participate in our bidding environment. So I too am supportive of this. I think the data reporting is going to be less onerous than we expect, but it would be good to get some feedback. I expect most of the data collection and reporting is going to be on the part of the contracting firms and not on our staff. And it's going to be more kind of record keeping on our ends. So I like this idea, and I'd like for just a couple of those, pieces to get tied up about what the Port of Seattle does for a threshold, if they have one, and for us to look at how this could be put into action.
Commissioner, those are great points. If I can, even if the Port of Seattle doesn't have a limit, I would recommend that we do. I think it'd be very onerous to have a project like this on some of the small projects we do. And then the reporting and monitoring requirement, I think we can make that what we want of it. And I will certainly find out more about what the Port of Seattle is doing, but I think you're going to see a recommendation from me that minimizes that requirement, yet still holds people accountable.
Yeah, that sounds good. And yeah, and I didn't mean to suggest no monetary requirement on our part. I think those thresholds that the county set are good for us to fall in line with.
My turn. So my concern is small business. I have I'll just on a personal note, we just finished a $1.4 million project on an Army depot in Ohio. I had 4 people on that site, 5 at times. if I've got a $1.4 million job and I've got to put an apprentice on it, I don't get to bid it because I don't have my best people on the job. I don't think this is the only way to skin this cat. I believe it's one way, but I really am concerned if you've got a small company out there and it's a project that does do, like I say, the one I just did at 1.4 million. If I had to put a trainee on it, I wouldn't have finished it in the time frame that I wanted to train. I would have wanted to finish it, or I would have had to have hired somebody separate to bring on board to fulfill that requirement. So I think it's more than just a dollar amount that we have to look at in terms of this. And my other take on that is clearly we're in need of people that are skilled. I mean, I needed some skilled technicians on that. And I'm wondering how we can go about training people so they're ready for these jobs and then move them into those skilled positions. We spend an awful lot of time training those people to get to the point where they can come in and do a project for us. We were in there in October and we were out by middle of January, and that's in a COVID year. So I don't understand how I would go through that as a small business. I can see how a big company could, but when I've only got a couple of employees, adding that extra layer is going to eliminate me from the bidding process. I don't want to hurt small business. If I've got a choice between doing a bid and adding that layer or having an IMCO construction do it, IMCO is going to beat me every time because they've got a slush fund of people and resources at their disposal. I don't know how to address that, but I do think it needs to be addressed, Rob.
Can I answer to that, Ken? Can I answer to your question?
Well, it wasn't really a question. It was more of a
Well, it's a statement, but so a while back, I think it was about a month and a half ago, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I spoke with the Labor Council 292. And we talked about trying to implement a program to address exactly what you're speaking to. I guess it's a pre-apprentice program where we're taking individuals and it's a school, so to speak, and they're learning the basics. You know what a tape measure is, what's a hammer, because I tell you what, there's a lot of kids that don't know, but what the tools are and what you do with them, how you use them. Because that's what you find with this apprenticeships that come on the job. You've got guys telling them, you know, what's in their toolbox and what they need and what they're supposed to do with it. So there's a layer that has to come before the layer we just spoke to. And that's, I'm not sure, I haven't spoken with Rob about this, if he's been in touch with those folks or not, but it's something that they're doing at other places in this state. And I think we could do it as a port here. Like I said, I don't know where we're at in the discussions, if Rob has had time to discuss with them. I know they were going to, but there's already some footwork been done, and actually schools are already up and running in different parts of the states to teach the kids how to come on that job site as an apprentice, and they're not a holdback. You know, they're going to learn, but you have to give them the fundamental skills before you can expect to put them on a job site as an apprentice. We used to do that in our schools, high school shop class. We used to do that in our tech schools, but we're not doing that anymore. So now we have to, as adults here, I guess we have to get together and figure out how to do this, because the school systems are no longer doing it. So we have to put a system together that does that, so that addresses the issue you're speaking to. And I agree, you can't expect a small business to take a guy that doesn't know what end of a saw is the handle and what end of the hammer you hit the nail with, and expect him to go to work and finish a project.
Yeah, and Bobby, we're on the same page, and I actually had this discussion with them as well. And as it turns out, I think they were doing this in Skagit County, and they described that there were issues with that Skagit County procedure. And in fact, they had more variances to this law than they had actual implementation. So if we've got a provision that we're putting in there and it's just going to be granted a variance because we're ruling people out, I don't think that's That's a good road to go. I would much rather see us put trained people on the road. I mean, clearly when we were in Ohio, we had a couple of times when we needed somebody, we'd go to the union hall and they had them trained. So it makes sense to have some step before you do the requirement of imposing that on our contracts. And I'm not sure what that is, but you're absolutely right, Bobby. We do not train anybody to do this in this day and age. And I don't know what that first step is, but I would like to see that in place before we go down the road of making it a requirement, because I think we're gonna hurt a lot of companies along the way if we do.
So commissioners, I think the Port of Seattle has something called a pre-apprenticeship program. And while that sounds like a lot of training, and I apologize, I didn't get to dig into the details of it enough before this meeting, but I plan on looking at this. It's hands-on and classroom training on how to be an apprentice. So these guys show up on day one and they understand what they need to be and what they need to be doing. To me, that has a lot of appeal because that's on the port. That's on the port to give these guys the hands-on, the classroom training, and it's not a requirement we're putting on our contractors. So that has a lot of appeal to me, and I'll bring more details back about that program as soon as I learn them.
You know, that has a lot of appeal to me too. I'd also like to see us talk to maybe our local vendors. I love to see a trained backhoe operator or a loader operator on a site, and getting them trained to be able to do it is one thing. Getting them the nuance of how to actually do the job is where the apprenticeship pays off. But they've got to be able to actually start the thing up before and be able to understand how the controls work, even on a forklift. I mean, you got to know how to move it forward and backwards before you can put them on a job site where they're going to hurt somebody. In which case you're talking about having a trainee next to somebody who's got to supervise them. So having that basic training is fundamental to us getting this in place. I don't know how we do it, but I'm open to ideas.
Well,
I like that pre-apprentice idea. I think that sounds worthy, and then for putting this in place, I think, you know, any new procedure like this, would be useful to implement after the first year. We have a ability to look and see what the successes and challenges, and reevaluate and ensure that this has really been a good process for us and a good policy. And I don't know if we would have data enough in the first year, but certainly after 2, I think we would have some information to see what are the impacts and are there any corrections that we need to make in the course.
Yeah, we've got some background in Skagit, so we should go down there and see. They've already had to tweak their program. I'm not sure what they started with or where it is today, but maybe we should get some background on that and see where they are.
Ken, are you talking about the Port of Skagit?
Yeah, no, it wasn't the Port of Skagit. I think it was the Skagit County.
So
I forget who it was, but I know they tried this there.
Okay.
I'm not in favor of suggesting that we put any kind of percentage in place for the port projects right now. I would much rather go the direction of spending our time and effort with staff of creating a pre-apprenticeship program. How we do that, I'm not sure. There's some people out there that do, but I don't even, you know, if we're forced to by law, I would agree that, okay, we got to do it. But I certainly don't want to go into an apprenticeship program at this time. Having said what we've said about, we know that people need to be schooled before they become apprentices. So I think we would kind of have mud on our face to move forward with anything. And I certainly don't want to do that. I would like to, however, move forward with trying to figure out how we get this pre-apprenticeship school up and going here.
Yeah, and how do we do a public-private partnership if that's what it's going to be? You know, how do we work with the Cowden Gravels or the Hankoop Gravels, or how do we work with the marine techs for the work that needs to be done in order to get those people involved in the training, because they're the ones that have the equipment, they're the ones who have the expertise, and maybe we can figure out a public-private partnership for this training venture. Even the community college needs to be involved, I would say, at some level. We need welders. How do we get an apprentice on a welding job and get them out of that school and some on-the-job training with one of our local representatives? I think that's a worthwhile endeavor.
Well, I think our unions and our labor committees and so on and so forth are the answer for that, Ken. I think that, and it's trying to remember his name. It's escaping me at the moment. We had a long talk about this.
Chip and Trevor.
Yeah, Trevor. Yeah, Trevor Smith. Yeah, they've been doing this for some time now. So and they said that there's opportunity for grants to fund these programs and many things. So I think if we continue down that road, I think we could probably get something jump started and going fairly soon.
So commissioners, I'll take this as a direction to work with the technical college, work with the union leaders, and find out more about the Port of Seattle's pre-apprenticeship program. And in the next couple of months, we'll bring something forward to you a little more formal.
Yep. When you're talking to the union reps, ask them about the Skagit County experiment, because I know that they discussed with me that it doesn't look today like it did 3 years ago when they put it in place, because they were issuing too many exemptions. So I'd like to see what that design looks like today.
Well, and I will warn you that most of our funding for the airport will not allow this type of a percentage apprenticeship program. But in the county's ordinance, they do exclude that. They make that exception in their own ordinance. So it looks like it's accounted for. Okay, that's all I needed.
Any other questions? Commissioner Shepard? Commissioner Briscoe?
I have none.
Yep.
I have none. Action item.
Okay.
Brian, who's going to go first?
You want me to read it, Ken?
Sure. Carrie, I forgot you were there. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Ooh, send him a nasty email.
Approve a motion authorizing the executive director to execute Amendment 3 to the professional services agreement with Anchor QEA for ongoing consulting support on Wacom Waterway Phase 2 Modca Cleanup Project, plus a 10% contingency.
I am in such deep doo-doo. But Brian, if you don't mind.
Thanks, Carrie. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gouran, Director of Environmental and Planning Services. So I've just got a really brief introduction, and I'm going to pass it over to Brian Keenan, our project engineer for this. Just in a way of background, as a reminder, this PSA amendment, this scope of work is associated with the waterfront, the Marine Trades Cleanup and Redevelopment Project, the Wacom Waterway ASB project that we talked about at the last commission meeting in the update setting. This is really the scope of work that takes us through the next year, advances the design, gets it ready to move into permitting, and also completes some of the monitoring that was required from the permits from the Wacom Waterway Phase 1 work. So I'll pass it over to Brian with that in mind, and he can address any of the details and answer any questions you might have.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Keenan, Project Engineer. Might start off with, do you have any questions about the PSA amendment or the work ahead of us in 2021?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So
Sure, I'll have some.
maybe just a
going.
Sure. Okay. So just kind of high level, what we'll look to accomplish in 2021 under this PSA amendment is, good chunk of the cost and the work. It's going to be additional field work to do the year 5 monitoring required, as Brian mentioned. Other elements, kind of digging into the details of what Brian described, the design, early design and permitting. Those are elements that are ongoing. And really the key of 2021 is really making some of these important decisions with regard to how we approach the cleanup, how we accomplish the cleanup, right? So what is the cleanup approach? Some examples of that are, how to affect the cleanup underneath the GP dock, the BST, the different marine structures, and working towards, how do we clean up the ASB? What do we put back in its place? So it's really, this year's work is really about trying to make some decisions on how to proceed with the cleanup. And then beyond 2021, so we do fully anticipate there being another PSA amendment in 2022. And we're looking at that point, presuming we've made all these decisions on the approach in 2022 and beyond, it will be finalizing the design, developing the bid documents and getting this thing shovel ready.
Yeah, so thanks, Brian. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward in the sense that we've briefed the commission last time, and this is really just advancing that work. The one thing to note from the funding side of things, this is funded through a 50% MODCA remedial action grant, as well as our AIG insurance policy. There are portions of that are not under the AIG policy, and that's in the port's environmental budget as well. So it's a fully funded through those mechanisms. And so with that, any questions from the commission?
This is largely in line with the expectations. It's always a little bit of sticker shock. It's a lot of money, but these are complex projects and we have a lot of them. And so they have a lot of moving pieces. The permitting is extremely involved, and the design and engineering in some of these is quite complicated as well. And with the ASB project, we're not just asking for one specific idea. We're looking and evaluating different concepts and different options that are out there. And so that adds to the complexity and some of the costs. So these are all strategic initiatives that we're looking to move forward. And we do have good relationships with the funding partners to make these happen. So I think it looks good to me on my end.
So a word, never look at the sticker if you want to get something done. I have no more questions.
It's hard not to look at the sticker when there's more than one comma, right?
No, you just don't look.
I don't have any issues with this either. It is what it is. And I don't see how you can short circuit it. We want to do it right. And I think this is a valid proposal. So I think I'm okay going forward.
All right, well, great. Thank you, commissioners.
Anybody else? Mr. Shepard, one more time. Mr. Briscoe?
Nope. Let's vote.
Hey, Carrie.
Okay, you remembered. I was here. Approve a motion authorizing the executive director to execute Amendment 3 to the professional services agreement with Anchor QEA for ongoing consulting support on Whatcom Waterway Phase 2 MODCA cleanup project plus a 10% contingency.
Commissioner Shepard?
I'm a yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Bell is a yes. It passes.
Thank you, commissioners.
So now we get to go on to
Thank you, commissioners.
other business.
Commissioners, I've got one item, and that is canceling the first meeting in April. It's the Bellingham Public Schools spring break. We occasionally cancel that one when the agenda isn't full. I believe we can accommodate everything from that agenda in both the last meeting of March and the last meeting of April and keep to our regular schedule.
I agree.
Spring break, isn't that what we've been on for a year?
No, it started as winter break.
Well, being the one with the young school-age children, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm okay with this. We would just eliminate the meeting altogether, right, Rob?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I'm good.
Do we need to vote on that, Rob, or is that good enough?
No, let's have a quick motion to eliminate what's the date of the meeting, Carrie? Do you know?
Yeah, I can read the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna motion to, sorry, I'm looking at the dates. We're gonna delete April 20th commission meeting, and we're gonna schedule a 4/13 commission meeting instead of the 4/6 commission meeting. Sorry, is that confusing?
No, we're not going to do a 4/13, sorry. So we're going to be eliminating the April 6th meeting, and we will continue with our regular schedule April 20th And we'll also hold the 3/16 meeting, March 16th. So we're not rescheduling the April 6th, we're just eliminating it.
I make a motion, we eliminate the April 6th meeting, commission meeting of 2021.
I'll give a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Unanimous. Okay, hopefully Disneyland is open.
Unlikely.
I know Disney World will be. All
I
right.
don't have any other business. We spoke, I wanted to speak to you, both my fellow commissioners, about the apprenticeship stuff. And we've already talked about that at length, so I have no other business.
Shepard?
Okay, I just wanted to mention that I had an enjoyable walk at Little Squalicum Beach with, I was there with Kurt and Brian last week, and I'm really excited for that project. It's a project to do some pretty exciting restoration, both for the environment and for the public access. It's a great little park, but it looks kind of worse for the wear at the moment. It's experiencing a lot of erosion, and the beach is just got lots of riprap on it, and you know, the erosion has exposed a culvert pipe that is looking a little bit dangerous. And we've had a good plan for a number of years on the books. It's been designed and permitted, and it's just been shuffled off and reprioritized with other projects that have come up. And I think we've got a good shot at having that project fully funded in this year's state budget. And so I'm excited about that. I think it would give an additional really nice access point for people to have access to the water for recreation and provide some exciting habitat possibilities as well. So wanted to just share that with you and let everyone know that that's one I'm looking for in the state budget and thinking about. And then my other comments were just vaccine related. I just wanted to share my excitement and appreciation to the health department and their work in acquiring more vaccine. We're scheduled to get over 11,000 doses next week, which is above and beyond anything we've seen in past weeks. So make sure you know where that Phase Finder app is and how to find one of our 39 providers that have stepped up to help get that vaccine out. And to that note, I want to just also extend my appreciation to the Lummi Nation and the Nooksack Nation, who have been taking it upon themselves to provide utilize their direct access to the federal government to provide additional vaccine to our community. On Saturday, the Lummi Nation vaccinated over 1,080 people at their Silver Reef Casino. And the people they picked, you know, this has been available to tribal members, but they also vaccinated the staff at the Ferndale Public School System. And I got to go out there and watch it happening, and it was really efficiently done. They had lots of staff coordinating this. It was a big presence that they provided and brought that many people all through in one day. So I was quite impressed, and I just wanted to extend my appreciation to both of the tribal nations that are using their sovereign access to bring vaccine into our community, and every shot in the arm is helping. So thank you.
And they've been particularly hard hit, have they not?
They have, you know, both tribal nations throughout the country, like many minority populations, have been disproportionately impacted by this pandemic. And so they've been doing a good job of vaccinating their own community. And now that they have ability, are also broadening that access to help the rest of Whatcom County as well.
Okay. Well, it's 4:45. I have no other business. So I'm going to ask that we adjourn until 5:30. Would whoever commissioners want to come back for the public comment period at 5:30, log on to the same account number, but otherwise we'll take about 45 minutes off.
Okay.
That's good with you, Carrie? I'm going to ask you first because I have some making up to do.
I'm ready.
So 5:30, we'll be back.
Yep.
Okay, I'll be back at 5:30. Thanks.
Okay.
See everyone then.
Thank
you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. How many years have you been with the port?
I've been with the port 5 years.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Great.
You're gonna kill it.
Appreciate the confidence.
This is the part of the meeting where you give her some really weird to do. Like clean up all the crab gear out of Squalicum Harbor by next Friday.
I'll just add that to my to-do list.
We got to make that request before Bobby gets on, because he'll.
It bothers him too. Some of that gear, the way it's stored, bothers him as well. I don't have a problem with it being stored there. It's when it gets really sloppy.
Yeah. Well, so before Bobby gets here, but since we're all in, let's revisit this 5:30 timeframe in this day and age. Michael, I'm not sure if Bobby's coming back, but maybe for other business next time. Maybe
the number of comments at the 5:30 time is very minimal.
If we went to 5 o'clock, do you think anybody would complain?
What if we just put it on the end of the meeting and not specify a time? Just, at the conclusion of the meeting, it's on the agenda for a second one. And if that's, 5:15, it's 5:15.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, the city doesn't do a second public comment.
No, our purpose for doing it, commissioners, was because we were doing our meeting before 5 o'clock when people were still at work. So we wanted to have something for people to come in and comment.
Right.
And that was probably more relevant before Zoom.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Now with Zoom, people can comment anywhere. And as you know, most of the people who come and comment here are doing so from their employer. I mean, they have an employment, their business has a relationship with the port, and that's why they're commenting.
Yeah. And most of them comment in the middle of the meeting.
Right.
Frankly.
Because they're doing it as part of their job. So they're at work and commenting.
So let's put that on the agenda next time for moving this to the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable. I mean, I think people also email us in greater propensity than maybe they did in the past. People are quite willing to send an email to provide their direct comments to us, and we get those to staff, and those make it into the meetings as well.
Yeah.
Commissioner, since you and Rob can set the agenda before it's sent out, this may be something where Rob could poll Bobby and Michael and yourself. And if that was the direction, then just publish the agenda that way, if you so wanted, or you could put it on the other business for the next meeting. Just giving you an option.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point, I think it's more a political decision than it is a practical decision. I think we should probably air it a little bit.
Fair enough.
But I'm okay with it either way.
When it comes to something where people are going to comment at 5:30, it's a big controversial issue, et cetera, we're not going to be done by 5:30 anyway. So they're going to have plenty of opportunity to do that. It's, when you're setting marina rates or talking about boathouses or those highly controversial, insurance on an airplane hangar, those meetings go until 5:30 anyway. So.
Yeah, so why don't you just poll Bobby, and if that's the case, we'll just move this to the end of the meeting.
Yeah, I'll ask Bobby. He's going to want to discuss it in an open public meeting is my guess, but I'll ask him.
Okay, that'd be fine. All right, anybody care to comment?
So we got Tiffany, Tamara, and John.
Meeting adjourned.
I have no comment.
See ya.
I have nothing to add at this time.
Thank you all.
Bye all.
See ya.
Thanks.